7 years on, Grand Theft Auto 5 is still a great looking game, even if it's showing its age a little. But with news of Grand Theft Auto 6 potentially being on the horizon, now's as good a time as ever to look at some GTA 5 graphical mods and see how they stack up. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 5 GTA 5 graphics mods that will compete with GTA 6. Starting off with number 5, it's a mod called GTA Realism. This is a huge mod that doesn't just overhaul the visuals. It also makes a ton of changes, both big and small, to things like population, car physics and behavior, as well as ambient events that make Los Santos feel like a more real place. Graphically, it does add a lot, though. They do changes to the alpha maps on trees, foliage. They get better light scattering effects, draw distance. Shadows are fixed, ambient occlusion on vehicles, pedestrians, pretty much everything that moves has been maxed out. Rock and sand textures. I mean, there's a ton of graphical improvements on this. On top of that, though, they made major population changes that really bring the city to life. Beaches have way more people hanging out at them now. It's probably one of the most simple but notable improvements. They also made it so animals can attack people, cops will walk the beat in their heavy foot traffic areas, and there's even carjackers who will steal people's cars when they're stopped or moving slow. There's also a full blood system that's been implemented. It's actually probably not possible to get into everything they've done. Like, there's stuff like a towing service, an overhauled weapon system, changes to combat. This mod could itself be its own video and still not cover everything. And because of this, it doesn't just try to compete with the next GTA game graphically. In some ways, it tries to compete with the entire franchise by showing the potential, the ads for real brands, the textures on the ground. Everything just looks more real. I'm sure some might call it more cinematic looking, and in truth, in some aspects it is, but for me it really offers a very crisp, realistic version of the Grand Theft Auto world that doesn't really attempt to tread too closely to the idea of hyper-realism. At number 4 is the Visual V, which is a mod that's not quite as flashy as the others on this list, but what it does really well is subtle. Most of the changes it makes are simply tweaking weather effects and making small improvements that add this greater sense of realism to the overall game. It really, I mean, there's no way to make it sound impressive, but the results really do speak for themselves. I mean, just look at some comparisons. The difference isn't always immediately obvious, but everything looks, for a lack of a better term, I guess, more realistic. In some cases, the differences are almost subconscious. The brain just jives with the Visual V version better. It's like, oh, that's closer to what I expect for realism. Like, it does such a great job improving the lighting, but that's not the only improvement this mod makes to the base game. However, it's probably the one that you'll actually consciously notice. The mod maker said they created the mod using thousands of reference pictures of Los Angeles, and it honestly, it really shows. Some of what you end up seeing in Visual V seems photorealistic. And again, it's really impressive because it's subtle. It's as though the mod maker honed in on the things that make your brain go, oh, that's a real thing, and worked on those specifically. At number 3 is 2K Water Mod. It's as simple as it sounds, too. It makes the water in GTA 5 way better. Even though it's called 2K Water, it actually also has a 4K version, but it's called 2K Water for whatever reason. Who cares though? It looks great. It seems like a really simple change on the surface, but it really does add a lot. It makes some areas of the game with clear water look so much more vibrant and beautiful. Beaches obviously look especially better, with more realistic sea foam forming, while pools have a more subtle movement to them that simulates that kind of default waviness a pool has because of the water jets. It's that detailed. Deep water gets dark and fast, while sewage water in some areas of Los Santos is green and murky and, well, looks like sewage water. I mean, the one thing that I wanted from GTA 5 was to know that I'm swimming in turds. So thanks, mod maker. This mod doesn't do like a ton of stuff. Most every other mod on this list does. But the one thing it does really, really well, and it can easily be used in conjunction with the other mods on this list. Trying to mix and match mods on GTA 5, though, can be a frustrating and annoying process because it often doesn't work, so that's nice, at least for this one. It isn't that hard to mix and match. At number 2 is GTA Redux. This mod is basically GTA Realism, but more. The objective is of course the same. They didn't just want to make the game look better, they wanted to add in a ton of stuff that would make the game feel more realistic and let you have more fun in the sandbox. Probably one of the most noticeable changes this mod makes is to the weather system. The number of particle effects has been increased by a lot. You're gonna see a lot more stuff flying around, particularly during a storm, but there's also way more trash, more leaves being pushed around in the wind. And it does a whole lot as far as upping the population density. There's a lot more incidental NPCs who are running around, hiking, eating, talking to each other, just hanging out. The cars obviously look nicer. They have been completely overhauled with much more realistic suspension and inertia. But more than that, they actually improve the car damage, increasing deformation limits so that cars can crumple like paper, depending on how things work out during a crash. Like, the right circumstances can lead to some really cool looking crashes. Pretty much everything also has improved textures, but the road in particular and plant life, these things all have 4K textures, and obviously that looks better. There's also a lot of changes to the police. They've incorporated various vehicles that weren't put into the game. They added more AI responses, and they also added euphoria physics so that NPCs react much more realistically when you push them or hit them with a car. It's another monster mod that makes a lot of the same changes the Realism mod makes, but there are some noticeable differences between these two, and you'll probably have to go through the feature list to decide really which one makes more sense for you, but they're both really, really impressive to the point where it kind of really is just like personal taste. And finally, at number 1 is the Natural Vision mod. I just want to go ahead and end on this absolutely jaw-dropping mod that, outside of just improving textures and lighting effects, incorporates some really cutting-edge graphical effects. This is a mod which was released through the developer's Patreon as early access back on May 15th this year. It's definitely the newest mod on the list, but you shouldn't take that as it's the least far along. Instead, take it with it's incorporating really cutting-edge features. For instance, it has screen space ray tracing and global illumination, and it really improves screen space reflection. Sometimes it might be a little bit hard to know exactly what that means, but look at a reflection. A person is in it now. It's ray trace, my friend. There's pretty amazing stuff done to the reflection of buildings, but also how lights work. At night, you have better building lights. The way they emit light looks better. You have better street lights. Again, same. There's new parallax map textures. They're subtle improvements, but the weather effects are way better, actually. Smoke is improved. There's a new underwater filter. I mean, you could really go on for a long time. The biggest and most notable improvements are from using ray tracing technology. I mean, pretty much every major ray tracing feature we've seen demoed in a AAA game in the last 2 years is pretty much here. Edge ray tracing. I mean, you see global illumination lighting, which is, by the way, absolutely beautiful in this instance. And just to quickly mention it a second time, that screen space reflection, it's really gorgeous in puddles and glass buildings and everything. This mod, probably above all the rest, is looking into the future of the series. There's no way we won't see GTA 6 without at least a few of these features on next-gen consoles and PCs, whenever that actually happens. I mean, yes, even a AAA developer would struggle to match this level of detail maybe a year or so ago, but this is Rockstar we're talking about. It's probably safe to say they're pretty much the best in the business when it comes to, truly realistic looking open world games, because look at Red Dead Redemption 2. That game is just stunning when you look at it, and they managed that on really aging console hardware. It's of course better looking on the computer, but what isn't? These kinds of mods get me really excited for whatever GTA 6 ends up being. I mean, this might sound childish, but they're all just really cool to see. Of course, the scope of a project is always going to be different based on the time that it's created and how many people they have. So when people go ahead and add stuff later, it's just really neat. That's what I think, though. What do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. Click like if you enjoyed this video, and if you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and don't forget to enable all notifications. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.